Ready to take off with the unanimous decision. I'm Chris King. And look, guys, tonight, obviously not a unanimous decision for this Dayton Flyers team, losing it to Richmond 69 to 64 on the road, suffering the Dayton Flyers' first Atlantic 10 loss away from UD Arena. Now, obviously, there's a ton to unpack here. It was a horrible showing from start to finish, I felt like, with this Dayton team. 15 points in the first half, abysmal. Awful. You can't have that happen. Deron Holmes gets into foul trouble, didn't play all that well, shot 1 of 9 in the first half, and he was bullied tonight. Deron Holmes by Quinn, the big man from Richmond, the 7-footer, was just bullying Deron Holmes, and it didn't feel like the Flyers had an answer, and so that's why you saw the result that you saw. And the foul trouble, obviously we'll get into that. We'll talk about some of the refs' calls. It was bad tonight, but you just can't put up 15 points and a half at Richmond, especially when you played great defense. You held them to 20 points in the first half, and the looks were there, shots weren't falling, and then it was a kind of a panic mode for this Dayton Flyers team. So let's get into this game recap. Obviously, Deron Holmes, 9 points, 8 rebounds. Didn't play that much. Obviously, was sidelined for most of that second half, probably like, was it 12, 13 minutes of the second half, because he picked up the 4th foul on a random loose ball, which it was awful. Horrible call there. Nate Santos showed some good stuff early. I thought Nate Santos played really well when it came to attacking, but then lost it. 3 of 9, 1 of 5 from 3, 9 points, 5 rebounds from Nate. Javon Bennett, he was probably the only player that looked like they wanted to be out there. And look, that's good from Javon. We'll continue to see improvement from Javon throughout this season. Really impressed with what he showed tonight. Obviously, it was a little hard to defend Jordan King. Him and Enoch Cheek switched up on that matchup because Enoch ended up getting in foul trouble too. But thought he did a good job there. He was 6 of 12, 2 for 6 from 3. That'll play. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist from the sophomore guard, the transfer from Merrimack. Hey, Javon, he played well tonight. Enoch, 12 rebounds. What more can you ask on the defensive end from Enoch? And a couple of offensive rebounds there as well. 5 points. Obviously didn't shoot the ball well. 2 of 7. Didn't shoot many threes. I think that's one of the things that Enoch needs to get going when this season continues on, is be able to select the right shots and be able to knock them down, because that's what we need him for. We need him to provide an extra scoring punch, especially tonight when you have Deron Holmes go out like that. So that was awful. He couldn't provide that scoring punch. Missed a lot of free throws too, man. Free throws, we'll touch on that as well. But yeah, that was a big part of why Dayton wasn't really able to get going in the first half. Enoch missed 2 at the beginning of the game. They got up 9-0, and that if that's 11-0, that could be a little bit of a difference in this game. Kobe Elvis, look, Kobe is a weird it's a weird thing with Kobe, because he has these moments where it looks like he's going to take control and he's going to be able to create his shot, but sometimes he's a little too passive in terms of trying to get to the rim and trying to create contact. Great free throw shooter. Was at 90%, I believe, before this game. I don't know if that changed, but he went 2 of 3, missed the front end of a 1-and-1. That was a big turning point in this game, I felt, as well. So he had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Played pretty well. 3 of 10 from the field, not great. 3 of 6 from 3. We'll take that, but got to be a little bit more efficient. And then obviously you had Petrus come in because Deron was in foul trouble, and he came in, and obviously he can't guard Quinn. What's his name? Neil Quinn, the big man from Richmond. Let me put some respect on that guy's name, because hey, he looked good tonight, and he punished our bigs down low. And that's what you see, because look, we had Isaac Jack in there as well, but he just can't provide the offensive scoring punch that Deron or even Petrus can, because he can't shoot the 3 ball. And even when Petrus steps out, that's a little bit of a threat. I know he shot 0 for 1, missed the 3 that he took, but that'll make you space the floor a little bit when you're trying to defend this Dayton team. So obviously we see 2 points from Isaac Jack. Didn't play that well. 2 rebounds. Didn't really get after it. Didn't see much aggressiveness. And then Kobe Brea, man, had some question marks in terms of shot taking. there was one, I think it was 34-31, where it felt like the momentum was finally changing to this Dayton Flyers team, and he just pulled up in transition off of a fast break and just chucked one up, airballed it badly. I think somebody maybe got a hand on it, but there's no excuse for that. You cannot be taking threes in transition, up 3 in a pivotal game like this. Look, if Dayton gets a bucket there, you go up 5, and now it's a different story in this ball game. And then late, we're down 5 once again. Deron Holmes, big block, and Kobe Brea chucks up what looked like at least a 34-footer on the right side of the court. It missed horribly. Yeah, I get he's feeling it. I get he's one of the best shooters in the nation. But when you take shots like that, it's forcing it at that point. And you're trying to be the hero, and that's not what we need from this Dayton team. You go get a bucket there, you cut it to 3, you can play defense. You can play defense there. But obviously that was not the case. Kobe Brea, 3 of 7, 2 for 5 from the 3. That'll play too, but just the shot selection. He had 10.6 rebounds. And one thing that I've been noticing kind of is teams are figuring out Kobe Brea. Teams are figuring out that you got to put somebody on him and just face guard him, and then it'll make this offense a little bit tougher to kind of get going when you got one of your best shooters who spaces the floor taken out of the game. And that's, it's going to be on Kobe to start creating more offense for this Dayton Flyers team. Kobe Brea, of course. And then, so we might as well just get on to the poor shooting, because that was the story. So first, it was the first half. 15 points in the first half from this Dayton Flyers team. And I thought we had great looks. They weren't falling, but that cannot be the story of this Dayton Flyers team moving forward. Like, if the shots aren't falling, we're going to have to get to the rim. And that's not what we saw. We saw a lot of settling for threes. I think Nate shot a couple in transition or some shots that just missed. I think it was, Deron. Deron was just non-existent from 3 tonight, 2 of 9 from beyond the arc. That was not what you want to see out of your big man. And granted, a lot of those shots were in and out. Like they weren't bad shots. I won't blame them. But at some point, as the best player on this team, as the best player on the Dayton Flyers, as an All-American candidate, what you're going to have to do is you're going to start making your presence felt inside if you can't hit from 3. We know the NBA scouts are trying to see more from you shooting the 3. We know this. We know you can knock down threes. But if you do not have it on a given night, then stop shooting. That's not what the game plan should be. That's not what you should settle for. And this game was neck and neck all game. And, just a ton of settling, I felt like, from Deron in the first half. And we'll get to the performance of Deron. Obviously, Enoch didn't really shoot much, seven shots on the game. Just 1 3 he took. That was also another bad shot, I felt like, because it was around that same mark where Kobe Brea shot the one in transition. Enoch, after they responded with a 3, Enoch tried to respond with another 3, and that just wasn't the shot. And this is the thing with Anthony Grant's teams is, like, we wait until the last second in the shot clock to throw random BS up. But at some points, like, we'll get into the shot clock right away. We'll get possession of the ball. We'll get over across the timeline, and we'll just throw something up one and done, and then it'll be, the opposing team's ball, because we're not crashing the boards. We're not. And you know what? When it comes to rebounding, I think we did a good job tonight. 42-39 was the rebounding battle, but at the end of the day, it was just the timely rebounds it felt like Richmond was getting, and it felt like not too many offensive rebounds when it came to the Flyers. So obviously we forced a ton of misses tonight, but it also makes it – that's why your rebounding numbers are a little bit skewed, because you can't score at the other end. So they got some rebounds too, 42-39 rebounding battle. And that's the thing with this Dayton team as well. Like, you see what gives us trouble is when we get out-rebounded. And that wasn't the case tonight. We just didn't shoot the ball well. It was bad. So I want to shout out Javon Bennett, because he's the only one that had relatively good numbers. Nate shot a ton of bad shots, I felt. And the thing about Nate, too, is, like, he had some mismatches where he could have just got inside and at least tried to draw a foul. But that wasn't the case. And obviously the officials, they weren't good tonight. they were awful tonight. They were horrible. I saw something about like maybe, I mean, these numbers are probably skewed because of late game fouling. But in the second half, they called over 25 fouls on the Dayton Flyers, and it felt like Richmond was in the double bonus for a long time there. So just a overall bad performance from this Dayton team, and quite frankly, we haven't seen great performances outside of Rhode Island for a while now. And I guess you could call Duquesne a good performance because you went in there and you beat Duquesne, a decent team, on the road. But outside of that, obviously the UMass victory only by 4 points. St. Louis, you squeaked that one by 5. LaSalle, horrible performance. And that's kind of the energy I felt during this week is like, you go on the road to LaSalle, you can make a statement there. Even though they did win by 12, you can make a statement there and go blow out a bad team. Because LaSalle, let's face it, that's a bad team. And obviously they didn't do that, allowed LaSalle to get back in the game. So hopefully this is a little bit of humble pie for this Dayton squad. They get a little confident, getting that 16th overall ranking, and they're flying through the A10 at this point. And now you go on the road against a tough Richmond team. This Richmond team is not a slouch. This Richmond team is good. They have really picked it up as of late on a big win streak. And what's most painful about this loss is that you don't get a chance to get your revenge unless it's in the Atlantic 10 tournament. But definitely raises some concerns about how this Dayton team can fare on the road. Obviously was able to pull out one of the bigger wins of the season at SMU, but that's not a world beater away crowd. That's not a world beater atmosphere in Dallas with SMU. So some concerns there, especially, you go into a hostile environment in Northwestern, you lose that game too. So some things to keep an eye on, because this thing could go awry if Dayton is not winning games on the road. You're going to have some tough tests. You still have rivalry games that people are going to show up and show out for, and players are going to get up for because you're a top 25 team. And obviously we'll see if this Dayton team is even in the top 25 after this game. Probably. I mean, you can't really fault a team for losing a tight one on the road, but also it's Richmond. Richmond is, they are a quad one opponent. This would have been a quad one win, but ultimately you drop it, and now, where do you go from here? Are you going to get right on the road for games that people are going to get up for, the fans, the players are going to get up for, or are you going to crumble? And, I've loved to see where this Dayton team is. 16-3 we sit, and obviously have a berth into the NCAA tournament if the season ended today. But the biggest concern is definitely playing away games at this point in time in Atlantic 10 Conference play. Let's look at who Dayton has. Got about 11 games left. They're going to have to go play at St. Joe's. That's another game where the fan, I know it's not that big of an arena, but fans will be up for it. At VCU, obviously. At George Mason, that's a game that you normally play close. And you talk about the 2020 team, we can stop those comparisons now, because this 2020 team obviously would have won this game for sure. But so then they'll also have to go on the road at Loyola and St. Louis. So if you want to get a good seed in this NCAA tournament, if you want to make this NCAA tournament, I know I'm not saying we're not going to make it, but if you want to just leave no doubt, you're going to have to start winning games on the road convincingly, because it gives you the confidence to start going into opposing arenas and showing these players, these fans, and these teams who is the best in the Atlantic 10. And at this point, we're in second place. Second place team in the Atlantic 10 after tonight's loss. We moved to 6-1. Richmond moved to 7-0. So you may not even get a regular season Atlantic 10 championship if Richmond is this good. And all five of their scorers, or all five of their starters rather, they scored in double digits tonight. Obviously, some fouls at the end to get some free throws, but yeah, it was all bad tonight. Not a fan of the showing. I thought the effort wasn't there from start to finish. I thought, when it comes to being aggressive, it was kind of limited by the referees. So just a horrible loss to take. In terms of resume, not that bad, but you definitely want to be in a better spot, or you're definitely going to be in a better spot if you win this game. So let's get to Deron Holmes. Deron Holmes has struggled with bigger, stronger, thicker guys. Pause. They're just. It seems as if they want it more. They're more aggressive, and I think that's part of the reason of that is because Deron Holmes gets so much national attention at this point, playing like an All-American. But I'll tell you what, All-Americans do not get held to 9 rebounds, 8 points. Yeah, that's not what All-Americans do. I'm not saying he's not an All-American, but that's not an All-American performance, especially against a team like Richmond where you're going to have to win this game, and it will be a statement win to the rest of the Atlantic 10 that you're just head and shoulders better. And didn't see that tonight. Neil Quinn, hey, props to that guy. He played well. He played well. And certainly when you don't have the three ball like Deron tonight, you're going to have some struggles in terms of trying to get open looks inside, running the pick and roll, running the pick and pop. You're going to have some tough looks, and that's what we saw tonight. And honestly, I didn't even think Deron Holmes' defense was that great either. Felt a step slow against Neil Quinn. Gave a little bit too much space to Neil Quinn to kind of knock down that push shot that he had in the first half. Held him to 4 of 11. Not great, but not bad, especially against a guy like Deron Holmes. And it felt like that allowed Richmond to get more space on the perimeter. So want to touch on Jordan King as well. He's one of the top scorers in the Atlantic 10. And he got 17 tonight. Probably would have been less had they not fouled at the end. But I felt like our guys did a great job on him, especially in the first half. He shot really poorly. But that comes down to the referees allowing our guys to play physical. They were allowing us to play physical in the first half. Barely called any fouls in the first half. That thing went by quick. But Javon and Enoch did a great job in the first half against a great scorer in Jordan King. And ultimately, it kind of crumbled because you're not allowed to push up on him. You're not allowed to get into his grill and play hard-nosed defense when they're calling ticky-tack fouls on everything. So that's why he was able to get going later on. When we went on that, what was it, a 4-point swing down, or maybe 6-point swing, down 3, he ended up taking down the shot clock and knocking down a pretty nice mid-range jumper. And he's a high-level player, and so you just can't afford to put the ball in his hands late in the game. You got to leave no doubt, and I think Dayton had opportunities to do that, and they just didn't do it tonight. Back to Deron Holmes. I mean, it sucks when you're kind of limited by the officials, and that's what we saw tonight. It was awful, and you know I think sometimes Deron gets down low and he just doesn't have that piss and vinegar that you need from a guy like that, from a guy who's been doing this 3 years and averaging over 15 points every year. So you didn't see the aggressiveness on the inside, and that's credit to Neil Quinn and his defense down in the paint, but he did a good job on Deron. Felt like it was tough for him to get going, especially with missing so many threes. And then having to sit out, that was awful. Didn't necessarily feel like Deron Holmes just he has to take this and learn from it, because he's played against better bigs. He's played against stronger bigs. Joel Soriano, St. John's, he put up some points, put up some rebounds on him, but Deron answered that, and he went toe-to-toe with one of the best bigs in college basketball in Joel Soriano. And now you get to these Atlantic 10 bigs, they may be a little bit more offensively limited, a little bit more offensively, but you still have to be able to pose your will, and tonight just didn't feel like he was able to do that. And that's ultimately why you see a loss like that. It's tough. It's a tough loss for Dayton fans. It's a tough loss just in the Atlantic 10, and we haven't felt this feeling since November with late November with Houston. And you look at that game too, kind of similar in terms of Deron got bullied. And then the Northwestern loss, that was just on rebounding. You can't give up that many offensive rebounds. But, yeah, there's a theme within these losses, and that is that Deron Holmes has to show up every night, and he's expected to do that in a weak Atlantic 10 and an Atlantic 10 that he is the best big man in the conference, and he should show up and play like it. So, just very disappointing from Deron. I know he's feeling the same way though. Like that's the good part. I know him and Anthony Grant and the staff and the guys know that this is an off night for Deron Holmes, and he should be able to bounce back. So moving forward, the Dayton Flyers sitting at 16-3 and 6-1 in the Atlantic 10. Let's look at the standings. Richmond obviously in first place now by a game, so barring a collapse from Richmond, losing a couple bad ones on the road or at home, whatever, and they can lose. They've played Duquesne tight. They can lose. The A10 regular season conference championship is not out of the picture, but I would like Dayton to win out from here. You finally got a loss out of the way. You had the longest winning streak in all of college basketball, short-lived, by the way. It sat at 13 or whatever it was, and then you drop one. So yeah, Dayton just they have to be better away. Obviously, 2 losses away, 1 on the neutral floor, and these games away are going to be tough. So you have to pose your will when you get to away stadiums and hostile environments. You have to show who's the better team, and it felt like tonight, and not only just tonight, when Dayton is not hitting on their three-pointers and not making shots, not making open shots, that can really come back and bite them. It felt like when Richmond would go up 5 points, it felt like 15 because Dayton just couldn't find an answer. Shots weren't falling, and obviously the refs, when you kind of cut into that lead, they give a couple favorable calls towards Richmond. It's not ideal. So yeah, Dayton takes an L tonight, 69-64 at Richmond. If you're just now joining me, I'm Chris King. We do this, try to get on the post game as much as I can for Dayton, but this is a Milwaukee-based Milwaukee Bucks post game kind of media group that we do. We'll have the Milwaukee Bucks post game show, so I got to get off here and watch the Bucks game after. But yeah, shout out to my guys Trey Crosby III and John Tyus for allowing me to have the platform to talk about my Flyers. I'm a Dayton guy, so you got to talk about this Dayton team. So after this game. After this loss, devastating loss, you got George Washington on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Who knows? There may not be a number beside our name. There may be a number. I don't know. The margin of error is probably a little bit different for this Dayton team than it is some of the teams playing in the Big 12, playing in the Big East, playing in the Big 10, stuff like that. So we'll see where they're ranked. But this George Washington game does pose a great opportunity because George Washington – once again, not a slouch in this Atlantic 10. They beat VCU. They have wins over George Mason, over let's see. Okay, well they haven't been great. They haven't been great, but they have good players, and I'll say that knowing that Darren Buchanan and James Bishop can give you 20 each and steal one. We lost to this George Washington team last year without Darren Buchanan, so. It'll be. I heard he got hurt today, so Darren Buchanan, he'll be a tough matchup if he is playing. But yeah, this George Washington team, no slouch, but you have an opportunity to bounce back in a big way. Go out there, and a team that's coming in on the road, they're not going to be ready for you. You guys need to take this loss and go forward and pose your will on this Atlantic 10 because it's not great. And if there's one loss you can take that's like, all right, we lost. It's tonight. I'm not really feeling too down about this Dayton team because we've put ourselves in a great position to be in that NCAA tournament, which is what it's all about. We want to be playing our best ball when it comes March, and hopefully this loss is just a learning experience for this Dayton team, but also not even just a learning experience. It's to show that you've dropped one because you haven't been shooting the ball well in the past couple of weeks outside of the Rhode Island game, but it's to show that your ceiling is way higher than these Atlantic 10 teams. So you got George Washington to close out the month. with 1 loss out of 8 games, which would not be bad, especially sitting at if they win 17-3. But what you want to prevent, right, is this 4-game stretch here with St. Bonaventure. This is after the George Washington game. With St. Bonaventure, St. Joe's, VCU, and Duquesne, you want to prevent losing even one of those games. You want to leave no doubt that you're an NCAA tournament team. Because come Selection Sunday, and we know Dayton's history in the Atlantic 10 tournament, you do not want to leave that in Selection Sunday committee's hands to where you have question marks and stuff. And that'll come with, obviously learn from this and trying to play your best ball on a neutral floor. We've played great neutral floor games, and I know the Dayton fans will travel to the Atlantic 10 tournament. But you gotta tighten up. You gotta be playing your best ball. And then obviously after that tough 4-game stretch, you're still gonna have a game at George Mason after a Fordham game, and then Davidson to close out the month. So very important February for this Dayton team, and we'll see what they're made of when it comes to more road games, more hostile environments. But thankfully they are against weaker competition, but I would say the stakes are a little bit higher when it comes to everybody wants you. The target is on your back every night in this Atlantic 10 to get some dubs. And these people are trying to be the upset. Look, I think Richmond stormed the court today. It was 16th ranked team in the country. That just shows you that they haven't been there in a while. So we'll see. Hopefully this Richmond team, though, I hope they win out. Obviously they're not going to go 18-0. They'll probably drop one. But I hope they do as well as they can. To try to get this league to a 2-bid league. Maybe they'll obviously this is the win they needed, and they can't drop any that are questionable, but they've got a good record now, and they've got now finally a resume win, and a quad 1 win for those boys, the Spiders. So we'll see what happens. Certainly will be interesting moving forward and seeing if Dayton can cut down the nets when it comes to March or maybe even February. But I don't want to lose another game in the Atlantic 10. I don't. And I think that if there was any loss at the right time, this would be it. Because you go 6-0, and now you're 7 games into the Atlantic 10. You got 11 left. If you can win out, you'll probably cut down the nets, and you'll probably obviously you're going to get a double bye, but I want to get them back too. I want those guys. I want to see those guys so bad in the Atlantic 10 tournament. Different officiating, and I think Dayton gets a dub. So I think, obviously they'll probably play better, shoot better on a neutral floor. But yeah, just a heartbreaking loss tonight. Not really much else for me to say about this Dayton loss. It's just, when you're kind of a live and die by the 3 team, these type of games can happen, especially when your big man is not hitting from 3. Just unfortunate for sure. He said, "Oh, and now you do a post game, convenient." Righteous Minds Comedy said now you do a post game. Yeah, man, we had some connection difficulty in the past 2 games, but now I'm back for post game. Hunter Petty says can't lose to Richmond. Right, you can't, but we saw the Dayton Flyers product that they put on the floor at LaSalle, so not surprised at all, not one bit that this Dayton team ended up dropping one. All right, wild day in college basketball, wild day. I mean, you had overtime games. You had Ed Cooley from Providence coming back with Georgetown. Now they lost, and then he went into the post-game presser talking about, oh, they should give me a bonus check for being in the arena. And having the atmosphere like that. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff around college basketball. Iowa State upsets Kansas, top 10 team, who's really not been impressive this year. Kansas has lost games to UCF, another game to Iowa State. And, I think it really just shows you that in college basketball, winning on the road is hard. It is, especially when you have teams that are going to be trying their hardest to get at you and try to take that ranking off your name, and they don't have much else to kind of get up for throughout the season, so they make their biggest game of the year and that just shows that there are games like this, and this does happen. It's rare to go 18-0, and I wasn't expecting to go 18-0 with this Dayton team, but I sure thought it was possible. I sure thought this Dayton team could do it. Just looking around some more scores. Houston beat the brakes off of Kansas State. That was an easy win for them. Maryland with a 22-point win over Nebraska. It's hard to win on the road, man. Once again, Marquette destroys Seton Hall. They've had a couple of injuries, so not a real surprising loss. How about South Carolina? They've looked great. They knocked off Kentucky a couple of days ago. Now they win a game that they should win against Missouri, but they win that by 8. North Carolina getting a win on the road at Florida State. Texas Tech beating Oklahoma 85-84. Oklahoma certainly going to drop down. 2 losses this week, 1 to Texas and 1 to Texas Tech. And BYU, they were at the crib. They beat Texas 84-82. And yeah, let's look around the Atlantic 10, see what's going on. I saw a couple of games. Duquesne handled business. Yep, 68-59 over Fordham. Won by 9. George Mason put up 92 on Rhode Island. I guess that Archie Miller defense, man, where is that? You give up 90 points in the past 2 weeks to 2 teams. LaSalle, impressive away win over George Washington. So both teams coming into Tuesday with a loss. That'll be interesting to see what Dayton does. UMass leads at the half, 41-36 over St. Louis. Davidson over VCU, 30-27 at halftime. So nobody really cares where the rest of the Atlantic 10 shakes out. And George Mason's up there. They're pretty good, but I think this Dayton team can handle them. I think Richmond definitely posted the biggest threat in this Atlantic 10. Sucks to lose this one tonight, 69-64 on the road at the Robbins Center. Once again, I'm Chris King for the Cream City Crossover. Hopefully you guys join us for this Milwaukee Bucks postgame show. A lot going on in Milwaukee when it comes to Doc Rivers being hired, Adrian Griffin out of the door. So that'll be a good postgame show. Trey Crosby III and I will get right back to it. I'll take a little break, watch this Bucks game, and end up doing a postgame for that. So double duty, actually triple duty. I was on radio this morning, 97.3 the game in Milwaukee. So a lot. Just check if there's any more comments on this YouTube. Nope. Dang. What? See, you guys got to spend time with me. This is awful. Let me see if we got some thoughts. No thoughts under the. Let me see. No thoughts under my Twitter post. So yeah, the Dayton Flyers lose it tonight, 69-64. Yeah. So my final thoughts are: look, you got to take this loss on the chin. You got to recognize what didn't work tonight. Duran didn't have the 3 ball, and that really took us out of the game, and especially when the refs started getting involved. Gave him 4 fouls within the first 5 minutes of the second half. That really puts you in a blender. Thought I saw a lot of good stuff from Javon Bennett, but somebody needs to step up on this team, and they've got to be able to get a bucket. And try to kind of see it from Kobe Brea tonight, and then he turns around and shoots a couple bad ones. Then you try to see it from Kobe Elvis, and he's just not trying to be aggressive, not trying to shoot the ball. So what I'm looking for is another guy. We need one more guy to step up, whether that's going to be Nate Santos, who was the second leading scorer for a while, whether that's going to be Kobe Brea, who is one of the top 3-point shooters in all of the country, and that's going to continue. He just can't find the looks. We got to figure out a way to get open looks for Kobe Brea. Nate Santos, like I mentioned, Nate Santos, he's been good. Javon Bennett was really good tonight, 18 points, and didn't back down from Jordan King. Scored toe-to-toe with one of the best scorers in the Atlantic 10, but it felt like it took him too long to get going. It took Javon too long to try to pose his will on this game when he could have been doing that in the first half when Duran was shooting 9 threes and going in and out on him. So can't really fault anybody for the loss. Not gonna fault AG. Didn't what I thought of his performance. Had a couple weird lineups in there. Got Petrus in there, which was weird because he threw him in for the first time since he's been out, and tried to look for an answer for Neil Quinn. Credit to Richmond. They played a good game tonight, and ultimately they defeat the Dayton Flyers. They get a court storm. Congrats. I hope we see you in March in the Atlantic 10 tournament and crush your dreams of an at-large bid, because I think this Dayton team is in no way a worse team than this Richmond Spiders team. But that being said, you take a loss, 69-64. I'm Chris King once again. The unanimous decision was not a unanimous decision tonight, 69-64. Once again, Dayton taking the L. Join us for the Cream City crossover after this Milwaukee Bucks New Orleans Pelicans game. And I'll see you next time. Once again, Chris King.